It's time to ignite your soul and unlock your full potential. Join us on Beneath the Helmet, the podcast exploring firefighters' health and wellness. Hosted by retired Fire Chief Arjuna George, our podcast is the perfect place to start your journey towards becoming the best version of yourself. So come on, let's join the conversation and find out what sets your soul on fire.
All right, welcome back, everyone. It's almost the end of 2023. It's hard to believe. I just want to give a shout out to all my amazing guests that I've had on the show this year. We're coming to a close, and season 2 is opening up in January, which is pretty awesome. I want to thank all the listeners, the downloads. It's increasing every week. So please continue to share these great interviews, these great conversations, because the more we share, the more we like and comment and share it with our friends and family, the more it'll get into the ears of more people who need to hear it around the world. Today, I get to have a great conversation with Christopher Moore. So Christopher Moore is a mental health advocate. We're going to talk about his struggles through PTSD, but also the amazing growth that he's had through his trauma. And now he's out there sharing the word, sharing the message, and really making sure that no more firefighters or first responders have to lose their lives due to mental health. So he shares his own story about mental health struggles, suicidal thoughts, but also he has a key message about picking up that 5,000-pound telephone. So that 5,000-pound telephone is very hard to pick up in the middle of the night when you need help. But Christopher, and I have not seen this in any other guest yet, he shares his personal cell phone number with the world. And his mission is to really be there to hear that person when they need it. And when they pick up that 5,000-pound phone, he'll be there. So it's a lot to ask Chris to be on guard, but it's something he's taken on, and it means a lot to him. So I hope you enjoy this great episode with another mental health advocate, Captain Chris Moore. All right, until next time, stay well. All right, welcome back, everyone. Today I got a very special guest. I got Christopher Moore here today. Welcome to the show, Christopher.
Hey, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Fantastic. I'd love to hear a little bit who Christopher is and kind of where you've come from, what kind of background you have, and what brought you to where you're sitting today.
So I'm a fire captain in Chesapeake, Virginia. I've been a firefighter for 30 years now, and I'm a second generation first responder. My father was a police officer, and he did 25 years. So it's just something that's kind of been instilled in me and in my blood. I always knew I wanted to go this route and help the community, just to serve the citizens. So I remembered at an early age, just growing up, the pride that my father had when he served, put on that uniform and going out and serving the public, and then coming home and just hearing all of the good stories is what he would share with me. And looking back on it now, I know that he had a lot of bad stories too, because now that I'm into my career, I know with every good story that we have, there's at least one or two bad stories and tragedies that go along with it each shift, it seems like. So I had gotten into firefighting and serving the public. And then I started realizing all the bad that comes along with the good. And talking to my father, shared a little bit with him prior to his passing, but I would never share the bad with anybody. I was doing like my dad did with me. I never talked about the unfortunate events and the tragedies that go with the job of being a first responder. And I would always just keep it inside. And that's what I found my father actually did until the day that he passed, was keeping his traumas inside. I continued doing that until it was probably it was 2017. I ended up having an issue where I thought I was going just totally just crazy, just losing my mind. We ran a pediatric cardiac arrest And for some reason, that was the call that opened up Pandora's box inside of my head of calls that I experienced 5, 10, 15, even 20 years earlier, that I never thought twice about. They were done, gone, over with, and the chapter was closed on that. But all of a sudden, this one call opened everything up. And I was having a lot of issues with sleeping, and just finding ways to numb myself. And I know we'll dig into this either. You asked for an explanation of kind of who I am, and I'm going into my story all of a sudden now. But
Wherever it feels comfortable.
yeah,
Yep.
I just kind of started once I discovered what was going on and got the help, which we'll talk about. I knew that I wasn't the only person ever to go through this, and that more firefighters, police officers, EMTs, and dispatchers have to be feeling the same way and going through the same thing and same struggles as me. So that's what I do right now. I'm still an active fire captain, and I travel around, speak all over the country about post-traumatic stress and trauma in first responders, and how to get help. And by sharing my story, a lot of people know that they're not alone. They think that to have post-traumatic stress, you either have to have been in the military, or you've been involved in a line of duty death, or a near miss, or an officer involved shooting, or something extremely traumatic like that. And that's just not always the case. It's a lot of cumulative effects that really add up that can cause the post-traumatic stress if you don't have a healthy coping mechanism to navigate your way through it. And that's something that I never had up until recently, was that healthy coping mechanism. And us as first responders, we just, we don't have them in place. We're just now learning about them and starting to take it seriously. When I say starting to, is we've been talking about this for probably really long and hard for probably about 3 years, 3 to 5 years. First responder world has been talking a lot of more and more about mental health and wellness, but I think talking it and walking the walk are two separate things. Finding from talking to people all across the country and other countries also, that a lot of organizations are just doing it to check the box and to say that they have it. But establishing one, a peer support or a behavioral health and wellness department or section for your department, and just putting somebody into that position and say, hey, we have it. That's not what we need. And I've learned a lot from that. And I'm a strong advocate of going around and trying to help departments and organizations better install a, not just by name, but a culture for behavioral health and wellness by giving them tools, solutions, and the know how to use those tools and solutions. Anybody can have a tool in their hand, but if they don't know how to use it, it's not doing them any good. So I help by offering those tools and solutions with that.
Well, thank you for your powerful work, because I think that's we're kind of at the precipice of this whole movement, right? And this change that we're seeing. So I really think that all of us play a big part in changing this culture, improving this culture. I've kind of changed my tune on how I speak about culture, because culture is important in the fire service, and we're not necessarily here to change it. We're here to improve it. I got this from a couple of podcast guests, and I'm like, I like that. I like that. I'll use that now, because we do have a lot of good things in the fire service culture and first responder community, but sometimes we need to improve it for sure.
Yeah, and that's two things that every firefighter, probably every first responder, but I'll speak for firefighters, we hate.
Yes,
Our number one is change, and number two is for things to stay the same.
exactly.
So we don't want to change it, but we don't want it to stay the same. We just need to modify it.
Mhm.
So
So you talked about expressing the bad calls and how to express that. What strategies would you suggest to the listeners on how to share those bad calls in a healthy way?
Probably one of the biggest things that I found that helped me was I was, as a firefighter, gone 24 hours at a time. So I'm away from my family for, by the time you factor travel in and everything, 25 hours at a time. I come home off shift, and as I'm getting ready to go out the door, or come in the door, my wife is getting ready to go out the door.
Mhm.
But you would think that I would have all sorts of things to talk to my wife about since I've been gone, haven't seen her in 25 hours. And the thing that I used to always do when she asked me how my shift was or whatever, I was like, oh, it was the norm or it was okay. I never opened and said anything positive or negative about work. I just thought that I was shielding them and protecting them. When looking back now and knowing now that family is one of the best resources that we possibly have to get that initial venting out and talking. Obviously, with HIPAA and the Privacy Act and everything, you can't disclose a whole lot of information, but just coming home and maybe at that moment, just let your spouse know if you're coming home, if you have the luxury, if you want to look at it that way, of coming home to a significant other, let them know that, hey, I had a rough shift. We had a couple of rough calls. I'll talk about it with you later when you get home from work and we have more time. I just want to kind of be by myself and process it right now. And we'll open up and discuss it later. I found that to be very instrumental in getting the ball rolling for my mental health by just opening up and shielding or not shielding, excuse me, my family. I would tell them when I had something bad. That way, they weren't walking on eggshells. That's something that they used to describe how dad was or how they had to act when dad came home. They could tell when I had the bad calls. I wouldn't talk about anything, and they were just walking on eggshells because I would snap. And it wasn't a good time for me, obviously, but especially how it was affecting my family, my loved ones. So now that I reach out and I talk to them about bad things, it truly, it helps me out just letting that out. I don't need them to offer solutions. Um, I just need them to be understanding and have an open ear. And I just need to be felt like I'm being heard. And I get that. My wife and I have since parted ways and divorced. And I still have a good support system. I have friends that I utilize that on. If I have rough calls, I know to pick up that 5,000-pound telephone that we can so easily lift up whenever we want for social media or TikTok or surfing the web or whatever. It's light as hell. But for some reason, a lot of people, it's hard and so heavy to pick up when you just need to make that phone call and just vent or tell somebody you're hurting and show that vulnerability. But I no longer have that that issue. I used to think that my friends, if I talked to them about, hey man, I'm really hurting right now. I had a really bad call at work, and it's just making me feel just horrible inside. That they would think that I was less of a person, but I didn't know my friends good enough. I didn't, I guess, trust them enough. I thought I did. I thought we were really great friends and all, but I just didn't think I had that bond where I can open up and fully share emotions and things that I feel in everyday life and especially in the job. But boy, was I wrong. Um, the human connection and friendships that we have and we develop and everything, is key. If somebody is a true friend of yours, a true buddy, just being able to open up and talk to them non-judgmental, like I said, with somebody that's listening to you, not to reply. Because so often when we have a conversation, I'm listening to you because I'm trying to formulate a response to you. And they know to listen to me without any worry of trying to think about what do you say to somebody who's going through something like that. And they just listen to me, and it makes me feel really good to get things off of my chest and know that somebody cares enough about me. So that's probably the first and the foremost, the easiest thing on the front line that I find that we can do. And then it graduates from there. We look into therapy and even exploring our faith and with religion and church and pastors, if people um, believe in that higher power and decide to go that route. I never force that on anybody. People have to come to that themselves. But there are so many good outlets between family, friends, church and the higher power, and therapy. So that's kind of a few of the things that we can dive into a lot deeper if you choose to, or
Yes.
wherever we want to go with this, man.
Fantastic. You mentioned about coming home, talking to your wife, um, kind of filling her in on the day. Do you have a strategy for a transition between coming home from the fire job to being home to family time? Is there a transition ritual you have in place that would help you or help our listeners maybe?
Well, one thing that I do um, daily now, and I try and set my alarm early at the firehouse, and if the citizens are good to me, and I have um, 20 minutes free before it's time to get off duty, or I'll stick around just a little bit if I can find like a quiet place away from the uh, the other firefighters that are getting off shift or those coming on, because I do daily meditations.
Mm.
And I think that is an amazing thing to do at the end of each shift, is just reflect on everything and then go into a meditation. There, I do 20-minute meditations, and it just clearly opens up my mind and just frees things and frees myself. And then on the drive home, I'm just a lot more clear headed and cognizant of, I don't want to sound too, if I don't already talking about meditation, I don't want to sound too hippie-ish, if you will,
Mhm.
but it just makes me feel more connected, mind and body. And I can gather my thoughts more and then better process when I get home, let my wife know, kind of like I said, hey, I had some bad calls. Let's talk about it later. And then when we do have that conversation later, it's processed, and it makes for a lot smoother transition going into that conversation.
So, yeah, I think for the listeners, I think meditation has maybe a, like you say, a hippie kind of background to it, but there's CEOs and Fortune 500s that are practicing in this daily. There are fire service leaders that are now talking about this, including yourself. I think it's nothing to be afraid of or ashamed of. I think it's a powerful tool. Meditation, mindfulness, sitting quietly by yourself, whatever you want to call it, it's a powerful, powerful tool to use for your own self care.
Absolutely.
So, hippie-ish, yeah, maybe, but maybe change the mindset that it's just a good self care tool for sure.
Yeah. When I first got introduced to it, um, as all first responders, or majority of us, were so hyper vigilant, and you could see we carry that stress and just tension and everything throughout our shoulders and all the way down throughout our body. We're always on alert and just looking around us. And when it was introduced to me, I was like, there's no way I can't get my body, my mind into a trance where I'm just letting go of everything. And I was told, just look, lean into it, just try it. Don't give up on it. There is no such thing as a bad meditation. And eventually it'll sink in. And it took me almost exactly 2 weeks of doing it daily. And something happened, just that switch hit on about 2 weeks into it. And my body just fully absorbed the meditation and just got into that mindful state. And ever since then, like I said, I daily, do it daily, at least once a day, usually twice. And it's a game changer, man. It totally is, just kind of disconnecting and freeing your mind, and just processing everything is so much easier with that clear mindset.
Fantastic. You mentioned therapy quite a bit. Tell us about your experience with traditional therapy. Did that go well? Did that go poor? Just your experience with traditional therapy.
Yeah. So my experience began in 2018. And that was when a mentor in my department knew I was struggling and going through some issues. And he had given me a business card of a clinician in our area that works with first responders. So having that card and then picking up that 5,000 pound telephone and making that call are two totally different things. So finally, after about a month or so, I did pick up the phone and made that phone call, and then got those two hard words out, help me. And so a therapist and we set up a time, and I went in to meet with him. And I was so reluctant because for us older guys, they'll probably appreciate this. I thought that it was from like the stuff we would see on television or the movies back in the days, that when I go to therapy, I'm walking into this office and I'm going to be laying down on a couch and he's going to be sitting in this wing chair, a roaring fireplace going, and he's smoking a pipe. And I'm just laying there balled up, crying on the couch, talking about all my traumas that I've ever experienced. But it was totally, totally nothing at all like that. And it was just like you and I right now, just two guys having a conversation and offering up solutions to the problem, which are tools, and offering the know-how and the ability to know how and recognize when we need to use those tools. It was totally not what I expected. It was a pleasant, very pleasant surprise. I have since then gone to other therapists because um, the first gentleman that I started out seeing had to unfortunately shut his practice down unexpectedly. And so when I started finding or looking to find a new therapist, I ended up going, I just put in my head, I came up with the idea that therapists are like a pair of shoes. They are not one size fits all. And when I went to one therapist, I actually told her that, and she told me pretty much the exact same thing back, that patients are the same thing. I'm not one size fits all. And if she didn't think she could help me, she would get me the help that I needed with the proper therapist. Um, Through her, we ended up hitting it off and doing very well together. And I was introduced to EMDR, the eye movement desensitization reprocessing. And that is a amazing skill set and treatment that really helps out a lot for anybody who has heard about it and hasn't actually found a therapist that works with it, or is just on the fence with it. It just really helps by reprocessing a lot of the thoughts. People ask me quite often when I talk about that, it's like, what are you talking about with reprocessing? Is it like scrambling your brain or something? And this is my words. I dumb it down for dumb firemen like me, not anybody else out there, but for me, is our brain is a filing cabinet. So if we have some of those traumatic events that we saw that are on the front of our brain, when we do this EMDR, this reprocessing, it takes the stuff that's in the very front of our filing cabinet and moves it to the back of the filing cabinet. It doesn't erase it completely from your mind or anything like that. It just reprocesses it and puts it in another compartment. And it's just really, really cool how something that simple can be so effective. Does it work for everybody? Absolutely not. But it worked for me. It's one of my tools that I have in my tool bag when I go to therapy. And I will never, ever stop going to therapy now that I have a great therapist. We have gone from a couple times a week to once a week, and now we go every other week. But I'll never do anything less than that, even if I don't have any traumatic events or issues going on in my life. I'll just go in there and sit down and just shoot the breeze with my therapist, and I'm just talk about things that are going good in my life. And it's just great, like I said, because that's another person that is letting me be heard, and I know it's a safe place where I can open up about anything.
Well, it's so powerful when you have a safe environment, a safe container where you can be 100% Chris, you can be 100% vulnerable, open. That's when real healing starts, for sure. You talked about parachute therapy, as in when trauma hits, you finally find your therapist. You don't have one before you need one. You reach out when you're basically going through that trauma. Any thoughts there you want to touch on? Or
Yeah, that's the wrong time. It
Mhm.
actually, if you're looking for a therapist, there is never a wrong time. That's you're doing the right thing. However, I think in our career choice, so often we are a reactive career. When bad things happen, we react. That's what we do. We're trained to do that. Well, we need to retrain our minds and just change our mindset on that for mental health and wellness. We don't need to be reactive when it comes to finding a therapist. We don't want to be like, oh shit, I just had a bad call. Let me react by finding a therapist to help me on my day off. We need to start being more proactive with that, reaching out now and finding that. And there is, through a lot of my personal studies, there appears to be quite a um, dwindling, I guess, population of therapists and clinicians. They're not a dime a dozen.
Mm.
And just because you can find one, it doesn't mean that they specialize in post traumatic stress and dealing with traumas. Or if they do, they might not be familiar with the post traumatic stress and first responders. And that's a big thing because we really want somebody that can relate to us. So you don't want to get somebody. I've heard several horror stories about a first responder who finally does um, break down. They do that hard thing and they reach out and they get a therapist without doing a whole lot of research on who they're going to go see. And then when they start talking about the traumatic events that they witnessed on the job, the therapist needs therapy when they're done.
Mhm.
And so if we would just do our homework and set ourselves up for better success down the road, I think we would be much better off. One thing that can help that and help facilitate that is I really think that we are hurting as a whole all around the world with, I'll start with organizations and then like the city, state, nations and everything. But when our organizations, our departments, when they negotiate with human resources for health insurance, and I know this is another rabbit hole kind of going down this, but we really need to, if our unions do collective bargaining for us, or if we don't have collective bargaining, whoever gets out there and sits down at the table to negotiate benefits for your city, your county, or whatever, they really need to include mental health and wellness and therapy, not just a handful of visits a year or whatever, but they need to give us the option. Like I said, therapists are like a pair of shoes. Don't just put one therapist in there that we can all go see. Don't even put two in there. Give us the option to go see who we want to see, who we are comfortable with. Give us a big network of providers. Once you do that, we are on the right page. Just because we have that, it doesn't mean that we're going to use it as firefighters and police officers and everything, but it gives us that option. Okay. If they do that, it's showing that they are buying into it by putting this out there for us. And don't tell me that it's offered to us through an EAP, employee assistance program, or something like that, because I think a good portion of those, the thought might be in the right place, but it's just checking a box that, hey, we have this for our employees. So truly show that you have our best interest in mind and that you're vested in us and you put the right things in place. And then we can go back to the establishment of the peer support teams and the behavioral health teams and stuff like that to better educate that, hey, we have this out there for you guys now, and we're not going to take things away from you, and so many things like that. And guys would be more inclined to go ahead and establish themselves with a therapist before the time comes when they really, really need it.
I don't think it's a nice to have what you just mentioned there. I think that is a must for
It
leadership,
is.
for unions to be fighting for this, for leadership, for fire chiefs, for governments to start supporting mental health. All it's going to do is increase our performance. It's going to make us better performers. It's going to probably reduce money over time. And it's the right thing to do for humanity for sure. Yeah, it's not a nice to have. It's not a check the box. It's a requirement in my opinion for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like so many, like I said, I keep using the words checking the box.
Mhm.
And it's like, the past 10 years or so, cancer,
Mhm.
still a huge thing in the fire service, but that was the really big hot topics that everybody wanted to talk about. Now the magic words are behavioral health.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of them are just saying those words because it's the cool thing to talk about. It's the trending topic. But like I said, talking about it and actually doing something are two totally different things. And taking a quote from Mike Tyson is everybody thinks they have the answer to the test until they're punched in the mouth. So don't wait for your organization to get punched in the mouth. Let's be proactive. First responder suicides. I'm looking you guys dead in the eye out there right now. It's not a matter of if this is going to happen to your organization. Unfortunately, I hate to say this. It's a matter of when something like this will transpire within your organization. And you need to be ready. You need to be prepared for it. And it goes back to being proactive and establishing all of these things. So we know that we are doing the best. We provide our members with the best damn gear. Most departments, or a lot of the departments across the country and Canada, uh, we give them the best gear. And statistically, I'm not sure with Canada with you guys, but in the United States, probably only 20% of our calls are fire calls where we're wearing that gear. So why don't we still give us the best gear. If we're going to take care of the body for something that happens only 20% of the time, let's take care of the mind, something we have that we're using all of the time. And we do checks on our rigs, our equipment, our gear at the start of every shift. let's do mental checks on the start of every shift. I do that wholeheartedly at the beginning of each and every shift. When my crew comes in, I talk to my guys. I connect with them. It doesn't have to be, it's not a matter of saying, "Hey, are you good in the head right now?" No, that's not how you connect with somebody. It's just by getting that pulse of your crew, of your members, of your friends, of your brothers and sisters that you go to battle with each day, having your fingers on the pulse of them by having just general conversations, take interest in them. That way, when they come in one day, or we finish up a bad call and we come back, and it's like, man, he's not on his baseline. I have my fingers on that pulse, and that's not normal. Then we know. You take them aside and you talk to them and say, "Look, what's really up with you? What's going on? Are you okay?" And it's just a matter, like I said, of that whole proactive and fixing the stuff before we get past the point of no return.
And I think it's important to add that keep the pulse on yourself as well. So check your own pulse. It's not just, it's pretty easy. Well, it's easier for us as fire service members to be of service to others and forget about ourselves sometimes, right? So checking on our brothers and sisters is definitely key, keeping the pulse on them. But I think checking your own pulse every day. And I talk about in my book, having a pre-trip, just like you do on a fire truck. You have a pre-trip inspection and a post-trip inspection. Maybe have a pre-trip inspection before you start your shift. Little mental check-in of how your whole body is. Is there aches and pains, any issues that are kind of lagging? And then at the end of the day, before you go home, have a post-trip, little mental check-in. And that's kind of like a meditation or whatever you want to do there, right? So I think keeping your own pulse is definitely a key part to that as
Yeah,
well. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Keeping our own pulse, and we can't be afraid to tell people no.
Mhm.
And so many times, like you just mentioned, we want to be the rescuer. We're there. We always want to be the one helping somebody else and helping others. But we got to make time for ourselves also, and just disconnect as well.
Yes. When we were talking off air, you were talking through the therapy story of what went through your life, and you mentioned the ACE scores. Some listeners might be familiar with what the ACE score is. Maybe if you can just give a little rundown of what that is and how it affects our own mental health, those scores.
Yeah. So that was something I was just introduced to last year, ACEs. For those of you that don't know, it's an acronym, which we have lots of acronyms in public safety, but it's Adverse Childhood Experiences Score. And it's 10 simple questions that are answered either a yes or a no. And you don't try and validate your answers and think really deep into them and make exceptions to why you gave it this or gave it that. You just clearly think, did this happen to you or not? And the 10 questions are all dealing with the first 18 years of your life. And it, just off the top of my head, I don't have them, but just to fill people in a little bit, it can be, do you come from a broken household? Were you ever verbally abused as a child? Were you ever physically or sexually abused? Did anybody in your household ever get arrested? And so on. So the higher your number is, the more the chances are that you're going to have a complex post-traumatic stress. So I started looking into it since I discovered it last year and doing more and more digging. And I'm trying to correlate the average scores for a first responder. And numbers that I'm starting to come up with are about anywhere from 5 to 6 is the average first responder. And if I'm not mistaken, the United States, the average ACEs score in our prison population is right at about a 6. So, um, my theory with first responders and ACEs is that as a child going through those adverse conditions, no matter how good or bad, like I said, you don't justify it and say, well, I acted up, I deserve to be hit or whatever. but there was nobody there. We felt alone as a child. There was nobody there to help you. So as we turned into young adults, we take that, we want to change things. We want to be the rescuer. There was nobody there to rescue us and help us. So we want to be the rescuer. So we join our armed forces. We join our police department, our fire department, our rescue, or dispatch. So that way we can be there to help others that might not have somebody to help them. And like I said, I'm starting to find more and more of a correlation between the scores and first responders and military members. So it's pretty eye opening. One of the things with our traumas is even the traumas that we see and that we're exposed to. Um, we can deal with those, but if we don't peel back the core of the onion and dig even deeper by being open and honest with ourselves and our therapist and having that safe container, then you're not going to find all the other traumas that you didn't really know about that you tucked down deep inside you. And you really need to address everything, not just I had a bad fatality or had this or that. You need to find those other little things that could have happened to you in your younger years as well.
And very, that's what builds you as a person, right? Those first 18 years, very formative years where your brain's adapting and growing and soaking up like a sponge. So those first 18 years, there could be lots of trauma that you've kind of just put away in the file cabinet, as you say, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, it's interesting. I've always thought that there's definitely a correlation between first responders and traumatization from childhood or anything like that. Definitely a correlation there. I don't have facts and figures, but my gut says there's some link there for sure.
Yeah. And as first responders, what are we trained to do? Trust your
Mm.
gut.
Yes,
So
exactly.
we do
Exactly.
the mental and the visual size ups, but still you trust your gut when you have a feeling about something.
100%. The big S word is a very challenging topic to talk about. Suicide is one of those things that we almost shy away from saying, and we'll say anything else except for the word suicide. And death by suicide is a new term that I've come to in the last couple of years of actually figuring that out, that uh, it's not attempted suicide or committed suicide, it's death by suicide. And as you mentioned a few minutes ago in the podcast, suicide in first spawners is ever growing. But off the air, you talked about a really interesting concept about supporting post suicide. So those survivors that are still with us still have still in organizations, possibly even. What can we do better to support those folks that are really struggling and are still with us?
Well, like we said earlier, it's not a matter of if it's going to happen within your organization. It's a matter of when it's going to happen. We are for suicide completion and death by suicide. We know how to handle that. A lot of organizations, they have some policies in place on what to do. How do you handle your other members of your department and take care of their mental health and explain things to them and bring grief counselors in and therapists. But I found that I haven't found a single department in the United States right now that has a policy in place for a member that attempts suicide but doesn't complete it. We have guidelines in place through NFPA that state that you can keep a member out for 1 year that has a suicide attempt. And a lot of organizations just kind of choose to follow that route and keep a member out from the front line. Doesn't necessarily mean they're out and away from the department. They could just be reassigned to a desk job or training or something. But to me, I don't think that is the best thing. I don't think we should have a cookie cutter policy or plan like that in place. I think every individual and every incident should be looked at on their own. We should still have some certain guidelines, but when you just say that somebody has to be gone from the front line where that's their identity, law enforcement, 9 times out of 10, they're pulling their service weapon from them. And I know, and actually, for those that don't know me, I had a suicide attempt 1 year ago. It was March 16th, 2022. And I was pulled off the front line for almost 1 year. To me, that stripped me of my identity. A lot of people that I felt close to within my organization, I did have the feelings of being shunned and ignored. People didn't reach out to me. And it wasn't very good for my mental health. And because of that, I started researching and writing policies. Like I said, it should be department specific, but just different ways that you can handle and reintegrate that firefighter back into the field. And it all incorporates using therapists that the first responder is comfortable with. Like I said, if I go to one and I'm not comfortable, let me go to another and find one that I'm comfortable with. Let them do full, thorough evaluations, do all my therapy, then report back. But not just therapy or clinicians. You should also include and incorporate psychiatrists and or psychologists as well, and get a full evaluation of that person. But if they have to stay out for a year plus, and that's the honest recommendation from the healthcare providers, then absolutely. But I'd be willing to bet from talking to a lot of therapists and clinicians that they're going to probably side after a thorough medical evaluation that the best place for a first responder to be is at that kitchen table for a firefighter and getting on the rig and doing what we do, our livelihood with our brothers and sisters. And they've told me that. I've talked to dozens and dozens of therapists who understand that, and they get it. But like I said, it's not cookie cutter, and it shouldn't be just like that. That, okay, they should be here, let them get back. It needs to be that full, thorough evaluation, and not just nope, suicide attempt, they're out for 1 year. Like I said, my personal experience, I felt stripped of my my livelihood, my identity, and it took a while to get that back. I just didn't feel like I had that purpose working behind a desk when I wasn't on the truck anymore. I was just working behind a desk for 1 year, and I was doing some projects that were benefiting my department, but it wasn't the same. It wasn't me. It wasn't who I am. And I felt it was just not the right fit and right thing for myself. And like I said, talking to departments, clinicians, and members, I don't think it's the right thing as a whole that we should be looking at doing. If it's makes a change for NFPA, or organizations just make a change within them of what they're going to follow, just something better needs to be put out there. And like I said, I actually have come up with a 6-page policy, which is a lot of pages, needs to be whittled down a little bit. But I use that, and I've talked to a few organizations, and I just take it and let them take from it. I'll sit down and through my experience and thoughts and feelings, work with organizations and help them make it theirs and draft it so that they have something in place for when this does transpire.
Yeah, you say cookie cutter, but I bet you well, I know there's hundreds and thousands of fire departments that don't even consider this part of the mental health plan, the behavioral health plan of looking at members who attempted suicide. I don't even think it's on the radar of a lot of people. So I think that's a huge thing you're bringing up to for the listeners to maybe consider this plan of being more proactive, having a plan for somebody who is struggling to attempt suicide. How can we support them to the best ability without slamming them in a desk job where they feel probably their mental health even declines even more, right? So
Yeah.
that's an important subject.
Say, and one other thing that I haven't really touched on, I know I always speak about our dispatchers. Anytime I talk, I always speak very highly of them and how they are our first responders. But another group that I'd like to bring up as well, that this all of this that we're talking about today totally affects is our volunteers. And just think about that is there's not a whole lot of desk jobs for a volunteer firefighter to do or whatever. So um, with us, if we have, and this isn't just suicide, but it's just running the traumatic calls also. When professional career firefighters, we get done, we go back and we could sit around the kitchen table and solve the world's problems and decompress. But the volunteers, when they're done running the call, a lot of times they go back to their home where they responded from or their job. So it is a second identity for them that they feel is really giving back to their community. I mean, what better way to do it than to volunteer to do all this stuff? And then if they have a um, suicide attempt and survive it, and then that's taking away from them also. I mean, that's a big whammy because, like I said, there is no other position really that they can go into if their organization decides to just strip them of their privileges.
100%. Yeah, it's not going to do anything for their recovery. That's for sure. No, very interesting. You talked about how 12-step process through AA helped you in your recovery. Do you mind touching on that and how that could be maybe a tool for other listeners to use going through um, their own recovery through post-traumatic stress?
Yeah, absolutely. I was introduced to AA, always have heard about it, but I was never really familiar with what it was. I just knew Alcoholics Anonymous. You go to meetings and um, you talk about your problems drinking and everything. Somebody had brought that up to me and wanted me to do. It's called the Big Blue Book and go through the 12 steps. And they were going to be my sponsor. We would just do it privately. They would run me through the steps. And I told them I really honestly didn't think I had a problem. I knew in my mind that I wasn't an alcoholic, but I was drinking quite a bit to numb a lot of the images and things that were flashing through my head at times or keeping me from sleeping. I was drinking more than I should have, but I was telling myself I knew that I could stop at any time. And I agreed when the person approached me with this. And after the first three steps, it really opened my eyes up as to what AA truly is. And when we sat down and we discussed it, he asked me what I thought, and I was blown away by it. I know this can turn a lot of people away, but I wasn't aware that AA is a faith-based program, and it's about having and acknowledging a higher power. It doesn't mean that that higher power has to be Jesus Christ or Buddha or Allah or whoever. You just acknowledge that there's a higher power. And I really appreciated that aspect of it. I thought that knowing that and accepting that really helped me out. And my sponsor asked me, he's like, well, do you want to continue on and do the other steps? I was like, absolutely. I want to keep pushing through this and just see where it may lead me. Because he had told me, he said he had a lot of people that he's taken through the steps that initially said they weren't an alcoholic. And by the time they got to step 12, they're like, you know what? I am an alcoholic. So I wanted to see where this took me. We ended up over time completing all 12 steps. And I realized that I am not an alcoholic. However, he told me you can replace alcohol with whatever your habit, your numbing agent is. If it's alcohol or drugs or sex, gambling, whatever your addiction is, you can substitute alcohol for that addiction. And that really helped me. I actually went through the steps again and the philosophies of the steps and replaced it with my other hangups, because I was using to satisfy my internal drugstore to get that dopamine rush to make my stressors and everything go away. I was using copious amounts of alcohol. I was spending lots and lots of money that I didn't have, getting myself in tremendous debt. It made me feel good when I did that, until that credit card bill came and I had to pay it and didn't have the money. And then sex was another big thing that I used to numb myself and make myself feel better. So when I went back through the 12 steps and I would incorporate those into it, man, it really opened my eyes up a lot on that I don't need these things and how I can better overcome them. And without getting into all of the steps, one of the things that you do is you really reflect on your entire life and things that you have done wrong and people that you have done wrong. You make what's called a moral inventory. And I really, it took quite a while, but dove headfirst into it. And I made that moral inventory of things that I did wrong. And then your next step that you got to do is you make amends. You do whatever you can do to make amends with whatever you did wrong or whoever you did wrong. And it's not a matter of them accepting your apology, but it's a matter of you cleaning up your side of the street, and you're just cleaning up your business. You got to be, it's got to be heartfelt and honest when you do your best to make this amends. But it's just you cleaning up your side of the street. If they accept your apology, that's even better. But it's just knowing in your heart that you did the right thing. And then from that point on, you just start trying to live right. And I do a moral inventory daily. And how you, at the beginning of this conversation, you asked me about like one of the things I do when I get off work. Well, before that meditation that I was telling you about, I actually do a moral inventory also. I was like, did I treat my guys? Did I take care of my crew? Did I do the right thing for my crew? Did I respond or act appropriately? Did I treat the citizens right? And I go through that moral inventory. And once I get everything, my list made up in my head, and I think about things and process it, then I go into my meditation. And it's just, it's a good way of feeling and of living that way. So many people live in the past, and the past is just our memory. And it's already done. It's already happened. We have no control over it. And especially after you make amends with things that you've done in your past, then it's gone. It's a memory. The future hasn't even happened yet. So that's just our mind playing tricks on us. It's our imagination. So between memory and imagination, I'm here. I'm in the present, and living in the present by, like I said, making that amends with people and accepting there's a higher power, and what's going to be is going to be. Are there proactive things and other things I can do to make my present better for a better future? Absolutely. But I'm not going to dwell on and worry about things that are out of my control. And that was like some of the things that I picked up through going through that and being coached up with my sponsor and everything through the 12-step program.
Yeah, I don't think many people even consider the 12-step program from AA as an option for other addictions, right? I think it's strictly just alcohol, alcohol, alcohol. So I think you bring up a good point that it can be used for a lot of other things in our lives that we kind of use as our little crutch to avoid feeling, to avoid the trauma processing that we actually deserve and should be doing, right? So
Yeah.
that's very interesting. What's one question that I have not asked you that you wish I asked you?
Oh, shit. One question that you asked me, or that you haven't asked me, just some other tools. Here's one of my tools right here.
I was going to say four-legged friends are dust.
Yeah. There's all sorts of tools that we have. I know we talked about, you asked me about the meditation, the 12-step program, just talking to friends and family, getting therapy. This is another form of therapy right here, is animals, be it service dogs, equine therapy. That was another thing I was just introduced to back in November, and never once thought about it, considered it. And somebody just took me there. It was Conrad Weaver from the documentary PTSD 911. Took us out to Dallas, Texas for the premiere. And the day before, took us to a ranch and we did equine therapy. And oh my God, it was such an amazing experience to be connected with that. But we just need to know that we have these tools, animals, therapists, meditation, the gym, working out, going to the beach or the mountains or the lake or the river. It's all about unplugging. If our computer, we were starting to have issues right now, what do? If you can't get a reset, you unplug it and then you plug it back in, and it resets and reconnects and everything. It reconfigures. We need to know to do that with ourselves. And it's not a matter of just having these tools. It's a matter of knowing to use the tool and when to use them. So you can, what's the old saying? You can lead a man to water, but you can't make them drink. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. And that's the same with us. You can give me all the tools in the world, but if I don't know how to use them, then they're not going to do me any good. So I just want to share all those tools that we have, but I also want to share the importance of departments and organizations, making sure their members know how to use those tools, to recognize the need and the importance and the power of using those tools.
You can leave our audience with one tip that you haven't chatted about yet. What would be your one takeaway that our listeners could maybe utilize today and start acting on today to improve their overall well-being, their mental health, their mind, their body, their spirit? What would be one nugget you'd like to share?
Take time for yourself. That's very, very important. Definitely take the time for yourself, but don't be afraid to make that phone call, either be it to a therapist, a friend, a colleague, a family member. Check on them. Okay. So often when anybody passes away, and let's not shit ourselves, what we're talking about now, our conversation today, we're talking about first responder suicide. When you have that completion, um, everybody comes out of the woodworks and like, oh, he was such a good guy. Oh, rest in peace, so and so, and this and that. And I can't believe this. And I can't believe that. Where were those people when that person was going through their darkest hours? Don't wait for that to happen. Do your buddy checks. Reach out to your friends, your colleagues. Don't wait for that traumatic event. Reach out to them on a regular basis. Pick up the phone out of the blue. And it's not just our active members. Check on your retirees also, because like I told you with the suicide experience, by being reassigned for a year, how it takes away the identity. And just think about when you retire from this job with 25, 30, 40 plus years of service. That's all you've ever known your entire adult life. And then you retire and it's gone. Reach out to them. It'll mean the world. It'll mean the world to somebody. Don't talk about them and preach them up after they're gone, because then it's too late and you didn't make that difference. Make a difference today while they're still here and reach out.
That's powerful.
And this is my thing right here is, I always tell everybody on all my social media and my videos and all, this isn't a hashtag. It's not a catchphrase or a sales pitch or anything like that. But I will listen. Those 3 simple words, I tell everybody that I will listen. And my personal telephone number is 757-536-3373. Just like almost everybody out there, my phone, it doesn't weigh 5,000 pounds. It's on my side and it is on 24/7. And I would listen to you guys if you're going through a tough time, or if you just have questions about how I can help you or your team or your organization. Please reach out to me. Please.
So that's incredible. And I think it's so powerful, the power of listening. I think the power of listening is key to processing trauma, processing stress, burnout, whatever that looks like. If you can sit down with somebody and have a listening ear, non-judgmental, just sit there and listen, you really don't even have to fix the problems. They almost fix themselves just by letting it off your shoulders and just speaking honestly to somebody you trust, right? I think that's so powerful. So powerful. Thank you.
Yeah, you were the key word you just said, which we said a couple times today, is non-judgmental.
Mhm.
And just letting them just go on and giving them that safe place. That's the other key right there, is that safe container. And because the minute you and I have a conversation and then I turn around and go talk to firefighters X, Y, and Z and tell them what you just told me, then it's totally gone to shit.
Yeah.
And it's not going to help. Nobody will ever come to me again. And it's just not good. We got to be non-judgmental, give them that safe place. And it's not a matter of having the answers. It's just a matter of letting them feel heard.
I agree. Well, brother, it's been an honor to chat with you, and I appreciate your openness, your honesty, vulnerability, and sharing definitely some highlights of areas that I don't think many first responders, including myself, have really taken into consideration, such as the ACE scores, or I definitely think picking out a therapist is not a one size fits all, like you say. And we tried it. Well, just before I left the fire service, it was a plan of mine was to do a speed dating therapist night where we actually sit down with all the therapists that are locally available to us, and we sit down and each member has 1 minute to chat with them. just to see if do I connect with this person or not? And I
That's
think
awesome.
I'd love to see that come to fruition one day. But I think that is a concept that you could easily see 12 therapists in one night and say, I connected in 1 minute. I connected with that person, that person, that person. These other people, yeah, they're nice people, but I just didn't have that same connection. And I think that could easily be done by a lot of fire service organizations, first responder organizations, just to have that speed dating concept where they can
I
connect.
love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that might happen right here.
Awesome.
I
Fantastic.
love that idea,
Yeah.
man, and I will credit you for that. So that's what this is all about, is
It
networking,
is
planting
100%.
these seeds.
100%.
Everything that we talk about, when we share this to people out there, um, it, it's just a seed. Every single thing that we discuss, and not all of them are going to grow, but some of them are going to grow, and they're going to branch out, and people are going to grab those branches and pick the fruit from it
Totally.
and help themselves. And man, I'm going to take that seed that you just planted right there,
Fantastic.
and I'm going to try and make that happen.
Good. I'd love to see it.
I've
Love to
never
see it.
heard that. I
Wow.
love that concept.
Very cool. Well, it's been an honor, brother. What would be any closing words you want to have, and then also how can people connect with you?
Just in closing, fingers on the pulse of your members. I know that's just a metaphor. Please understand that, guys. Don't actually go around putting your fingers all over everybody, but just know your team, know your teammates, and you could be a great asset to them one day when they least expect it. Don't wait for times to get too hard to check on people, or for them to be gone before you praise them or talk about them. Life is short. Let's take care of our members while they're still here. Let's be proactive. Let's just do the right thing. Let's be good humans
Yeah.
and good stewards of our first responder departments. And we're going to put a better product out there if we take care of our members from the get go. Educate from the entry level when they first come into our recruit schools or academies. Educate them when you go out and you do your recruiting processes. Don't just show all the good stuff that we do. Obviously we have to be very sensitive with it. But when you go and talk to young people at job fairs, and don't just show all the cool stuff that we do, but being sensitive, still show them the difficult issues that we can and will face down the road. Let them know. Be open and honest. Share it with them. Share it with their family once they get hired, and what to know and to look out for.
And to get an A+ on that,
Yeah,
show those people what you're doing to protect them and to support them as well, right? Don't just show them the good stuff and then, yeah, there's some trauma. Show how good you, as an organization, you are in supporting your members. That would give you an A+.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, please support our members. And just like a lot of other people out there, if I can be of any assistance to any of your organizations out there, no matter where you are, or just you as an individual, I will listen. And once again, just want to give that phone number out there. It's personal phone number, 757-536-3373. Hit me up anytime. I'd much rather have a conversation with you right now, put you on my list and do buddy checks. And it's not just a standard format of things that I do. I take notes and I remember people and make these connections, because that's what this is about. I'm not just jumping through hoops and checking boxes like a lot of people are doing. I'm actually vested in all of these conversations that I have, and I pick up things from people and remember them and utilize those to help you down the road. If you reach out to me again, or I do a buddy check on you, just to follow up. And like I said, it's just a matter of being a a good person, a good human being, and doing the right thing for others. I would want you guys out there, just like everybody I shared with you earlier. People reached out to me the other day due to something that I just went through with the loss of a friend. And it was very humbling. And I was like, man, that's how I'm making other people feel by me reaching out to them and helping them. And they just did it for me. And it's an awesome feeling. So we do it so often to strangers that we don't even know. When those tones go off and we answer the call, we're putting our best foot forward and we are helping them.
Yep.
And why aren't we doing it to the people that we know that we break bread with around the kitchen table?
We're still here.
Yeah, we need to do that. So let's take care of our own that we're breaking bread with. And let's do the right thing, guys. Come on. Let's get this going.
Beautiful. Great way to end it. Brother Moore, it's been an honor, pleasure. And thank you once again for being so open and honest with our listeners and telling your story. And you're definitely making a difference in the fire world and the first responder world and the world in general. So keep up the good work. Man. I appreciate it. Until next time, everyone, stay well.
All right. Thanks, man. Loved all.
Thank you for tuning in to Beneath the Helmet. We hope that this podcast has provided you with valuable insights into the world of firefighters' health and wellness. Remember, caring for your physical, mental, and spiritual well-being is crucial to achieving optimal performance. Join us next time on Beneath the Helmet for more inspiring conversations. Until then, stay well.